Alright, this is Jekar here with another battle report. This is one I didn't actually participate in. This is Ogres versus not Wood Elves, Dwarves. The guy that's playing plays Wood Elves. This is his new Dwarf army. As you can see, most of his stuff is unpainted. They actually rolled up Watchtower. I believe this is 2,000 points. It may be 2,500. I asked and then I forgot, and this is about a week ago, so forgive me that. We'll go ahead and get on into deployment. In this picture, you can see everything of the dwarf players that's on the table. He's got an organ gun. I'm just going to follow the back line here for a second. He's got an organ gun. Next to that is a cannon. Next to that is the Anvil of Doom with his Rune Lord. I believe it has the Spellbreaker. It has a Spellbreaker and the Rune of Balance. It may not actually have a Spellbreaker. Next to that is a runed up Grudge Thrower. The Grudge Thrower has the double Rune of Penetration and the Rune of Accuracy. Then there's a Master Engineer. Then there's a Bolt Thrower with I'm not sure the bolt thrower has any runes on it. You can see the gyrocopter that's missing some blades. He's really frustrated that that gyrocopter is metal and keeps falling apart. He's very frustrated about it. Up there by the fence is a unit of Longbeard Rangers with a Thane with the Rune of Brotherhood, and the grayed out guys all the way on the other side in front of the War Machine Hill are a unit of 25, I believe, Ironbreakers. That's got his Thane BSB and his Thane General. His Thane General has rune of has two runes of strength, cleaving maybe. I forget the name of the runes. The +1 strength runes, and they've got the Thane BSB has like a ward save and something else, some extra combat res or something like that. And then in the Watchtower, the dwarf player has looks like 10 Thunderers, and so obviously he won to see what table edge he'd get and also controlled the Watchtower. Here is the Ogre deployment. You can see these are this is the Ogre's right flank, so the dwarf's left flank. It's got a unit of 4 Mournfang. It's got some Lead Belchers. The Lead Belchers are actually in that building there. Got an Iron Blaster. Got a unit of Noblars in front of a unit of Man-Eaters. Looks like his general plus his Tyrant general plus 8 Man-Eaters. Those Man-Eaters have the Dragonhide banner. They have pistols. I believe they have Stubborn and Swift Stride. I know they have Swift Stride at least. There's two more units of Noblars. Those Noblars all have Trappers. I'm not sure that they have Standards. I think they just have Groin Biters and Musicians. And the other unit there is a unit of Iron Guts. There are 9 of them, plus a BSB, plus a Slaughtermaster level 3 on Lore of the Great Maw. It may actually be a Butcher level 2 on Lore of the Great Maw. Either way, it's Lore of the Great Maw. Here are just some other views of deployment. This is so you can see kind of the armies in relation to themselves. This is the back of the dwarf line looking towards the ogres, and then there's also some pictures of his right flank looking what's going on there with the Mournfang, and then on his left flank looking at those ogres there looking in towards the watchtower and towards some tasty dwarves. Now I should go ahead and mention here that I was taking pictures and I was hanging out with the guys and they were having a good time, and they said, "Oh, we're playing Watchtower," and the dwarf player got the tower, and then they rolled off while I was only half paying attention, and the dwarf player got to go first. So the dwarf player both had the Watchtower and then gets to go first because they forgot the rule and I wasn't paying attention. So oops. So here's that first turn I was talking about. The dwarf player moves up just a little bit. He's got his that picture is actually his organ gun is moving up because the ogre player is out of range. His Longbeard Rangers, I believe, stay in the same place, and the Ironbreakers move up a little bit, but not too much happens in the movement phase. You can see just in this picture, he got 10 miners. They have a steam drill, so they came on. They're right behind the Iron Blaster, and I can bet that they're going to attempt a charge here in the shooting phase. And of course, in the shooting phase, the first thing that happens is the miners charge, and I believe that the ogre player flees, which I think is probably the right choice, given the Iron Blaster wasn't going to hold up to that anyway. I was worried that the Longbeard Rangers were going to countercharge, and then I realized this is the shooting phase, so they don't really have a chance. So I guess I was wrong. I guess he wasn't moving up the organ gun. I guess he was measuring. I thought they moved it up in the first turn, but I must have been wrong. Because here is after the organ gun fires at the Mournfangs, and you can see what has happened right under that arm there, the blurry arm in the foreground. There are 2 Mournfang missing, and that's from the organ gun blowing them to crap. So the Ogre's turn 1. This is something that I took, and I didn't have a better picture, so I'm sorry for that. The Mournfang go ahead and charge. They're in the flank of the Rangers, and so the Rangers sit and take it. The Dwarf player was actually pretty unhappy about this. I just think there's so many Rangers there that they're gonna do whatever they need to do. The Iron Blaster moves up. I'm not sure what he's gonna shoot at this turn. So here you can see the rest of the Ogre movement. The of import, the stuff on the left hand side that I didn't take a picture of moved forward. This stuff here turns around, I think, kind of in a foolish, but it turns around to deal with the miners, which I think makes the miners well worth their points. In shooting, he picks a couple wounds off with the Ogre Man-Eaters. I think they kill 3 of the miners. I'm not sure what's up with the Lead Belchers. Maybe the Lead Belchers kill a couple. But anyway, there's still miners left. There may be 5 of the miners left. He cannons the gyrocopter off, if I recall correctly, and that is about it as far as shooting goes. So nothing really exciting. The wound there on the man-eaters is from the Thunderers shooting out of the building, and they did like 1 wound. So this is what combat looks like after the Mournfang come in. They do a bunch of impact hits, they do a bunch of stomps. They kill some dwarves, but of course the dwarves are steadfast and they hold, even though they lost by 3 or 4, maybe as much as 5. And of course they reform. So there's 1 Mournfang left sitting on 2 wounds. And again, like I said, I was not worried at all about that combat, although the dwarf player was. And here we've just got an overview of the board after the end of turn 1. You can see kind of how the Noblars are pushing up towards the Iron Breakers. The Mournfang are locked in combat. The Gyrocopter's dead. And the miners have taken the attention of half of the Ogre army. So, Dwarf turn 2, they go ahead and charge in the Ironbreakers into the Noblars. Right after he made that, the Dwarf player, or the Ogre player, was kind of smirking, and the Dwarf players went, "Crap, you've got trappers, don't you?" And of course, that was all disclosed at the beginning of the game, but he had forgotten. And so they end up taking off, I believe, 4. And another sneaky thing is, oh, I know what happened with the Lead Belchers last turn. They came out of the building. That's why they didn't shoot. And the miners actually sidestep because they're within 2 inches of the building. They actually sidestep into the building this turn, which, if I didn't say earlier, is a Grail Chapel. So they get regen 6 while they're hanging out in there. I've got a couple pictures of shooting here for this turn. It was particularly devastating. You can see the the Iron Guts there took a bunch of wounds. I think that was the ruined up Grudge Thrower. He looked out on all of his relevant characters and champion, and it killed a bunch of ogres there. You can see here the lead belchers get targeted by something. I think it's actually the cannon. I think the organ gun is kind of out of range right here. Um, so they get cannoned off, and they'll actually panic from that at the end of the shooting phase and run right off the board. So that's no bueno for them. And in combat, of course, they finish off the Mournfang after taking a couple more losses. So there's, 15 out of 25 there, which is not, I guess, terrible for a quitting of 2 Mournfang, but still kind of sad. And then in the second picture here, they've got, of course, they killed the Noblars and ran them down, so they're a little closer now. All right, Ogre's turn 2 has some charges. The Ogres charge here. They charge the Iron Guts, the depleted Iron Guts, into the mildly depleted Iron Breakers. So that's going to be a combat of the Iron Ages. Ha ha ha, I'm so clever. And over here he gets the Man-Eaters into the building, so of course that's going to go really well for him. 10 Thunderers or whatever, not going to do anything. You may notice there's a man-eater missing and another couple wounds done. That's actually from stand and shoot. They killed more on the stand and shoot than they did on 2 rounds of shooting. Here's just a picture. You can see the overview. We got Noblars moving around, just blocking some stuff off. The Iron Blaster has turned around to... Actually, I believe the Iron Blaster misfired this turn and had to spin around. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. Again, this was a while ago. But regardless, it has spun around. It probably has spun around to try and deal with those miners that are in the building, because they don't really matter. But I think he's trying to pick up victory points because he's forgotten that only the tower matters. Not that he could shoot the tower, but he could probably shoot some war machines. This combat here was super bloody. You can see the Ogres lost quite a few. The Ironbreakers lost quite a few. He made monkey tons of his armor saves. And so that was no good. I believe that they stick around this time. I think he got the Ogre charge, did some extra wounds, all that jazz. So that looks good. Actually, I really thought those Ironbreakers were going to go down a lot faster. I know they have a 3-up armor save, but it goes to a 6-up with the Iron Guts. I know so they have a 6-up, 6-up, and I just didn't think they were going to make that many saves. I thought, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s with only a 6-up, 6-up, I didn't think that was going to go quite as well for the Ironbreakers as it did. I mean, I know they lost, 7, but that's still less than I thought, especially given the stomps and the impact hits and all that jazz. So, but that goes to show what I know. Really, pretty hilariously, there's 2 Thunderers left. I think it's the Champion and the Standard Bearer. I'm not sure that the Ogre player puts his Tyrant in. I think he just throws 3 Man-Eaters, and for whatever reason, maybe he fluffs, even though he's got the Dragonhide banner. Whatever happens, there's 2 guys left, and so they are steadfast on their 9 rerollable, and they hold. So the Ogres get pushed out of the building this turn. This is actually a pretty uneventful turn. I believe that perhaps the miners here were fled out of a building last turn. I could be wrong there, but regardless, they're outside of the building now. That may have happened in the movement phase. They're just conserving points and, again, distracting the Ogre player. Now, I should say that this turn in shooting, with the Man-Eaters hidden behind the building for the most part, and the other unit in combat, and only Noblars left, this turn was pretty uneventful. I believe the organ gun blew itself up this turn. The anvil misfired and just couldn't clang this turn, and I don't think that I think the bolt thrower missed, and the grudge thrower scattered off. Even with the reroll, all I know is shooting was not very important this turn. But then again, it didn't have to be. If you can check it out, the Ironbreakers went absolutely bananas and killed a bunch of the Iron Guts, so they broke, and of course the banner died, which I guess was either one of the last or whatever. But so they reformed rather than pursuing. So the wizard gets away, and luckily the unit died around him, so he can rally. Again, I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. Actually, I know I stopped taking very good pictures after this. The rest of my pictures are kind of erratic, but so I can go ahead and tell you that on this turn, that the Ogre player, on his next turn, the Ogre player charges into the building again. Yeah, so of course, like I said, the Ogre player charges in with the Man-Eaters. They easily handle those. And I'm thinking, okay, he's got a Noblar for each side of the building. He's still got the Iron Blaster. He's going to be able to keep those dwarves out of the tower and hang on to it for long enough that nothing is going to push him out. I think I have a better picture here of what the rest of the table is looking like. Right, so this is an overview of what's happening in the middle of the table. You can see the Noblars are there. They're going to get in the way to stop charges from happening. They're going to really mess everything up. get in the way. And I thought, oh, there's no way that this is going to happen. He's going to scoot in between, keep them from overrunning, and then the ogre player is going to have turn 4 to try and roll a 6, and then turn 5 to try and roll a 5 after, and only have sustained 1 round of combat. And like I said, the Iron Breakers are depleted enough that I think the ogres will win. Also, remember they're going first, and they have a tyrant in there. But the Longbeard Rangers that will do the most damage are always strike last and don't have enough armor, so anything that he wounds with is going to get through. So I thought, oh, there's no way, there's no way that this is going to happen. Those ogres are going to just thrash whatever comes at them. This is the end of the game. That was my thought at the end of turn 3. So what the dwarves do, and I'm not really sure what has happened to the Longbeard Rangers at this point. Like I said, my picture taking was erratic, and I'm not really sure how that what's happened. But what they do is they move their units around to around the Noblar blockers. They fire all of their war machines and they kill everything except for the tyrant. And then, of course, they anvil a unit into the building. Now, again, I had no clue. I mean, I know what an anvil does, but I had no conception that this was going to happen. This just caught me completely by surprise, and it was perfect. I mean, the cannon hit and did like it hit 4 people, and of course it explodes into d6 wounds per model. The grudge thrower hit, and of course everything counts as being under the strength 10 because it's ruined up. Multiple wounds, d6. Center hole, it was sickening the kind of damage that he put out. Like I said, I'm not really sure what happened to the maybe they got or what is the word I'm looking for? Maybe they got iron blastered last turn and I just wasn't paying attention. But anyway, so then of course after this picture, somebody's going to get anviled into that building and there's only the tyrant left. So here again on this picture, I've skipped a couple turns. They anvil the um, dwarves in. The tyrant does nothing. I think he kills 1 dwarf or something. He maybe gets challenged. That doesn't happen. I don't know what happens with the tyrant. He doesn't do very much. He kills 1 or 2 dwarves. The dwarves kill him outright, and they occupy the tower. There's 5 Longbeard Rangers, or 3, excuse me. There's the command, 3 Longbeard Rangers hanging out in that building. So what's happened then on the last turn, on turn 3, the ogre player had rallied his wizard. So this is turn 4, and he needed like a 10 or a 9 to complete that charge. So he threw his butcher, I'm sorry, into this building on a last ditch effort. This is the last thing other than Noblars he has on the table. He threw it in there. It must not be the command of the Rangers because there's no characters left, which means that he can't get challenged. So he has to hit with his 3 attacks, and he has to do 3 wounds out of 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, and a stomp that wounds on 4s, and then have the dwarf player make no 6-up armor saves. And so this was his last ditch effort, and I thought it was excellent. I was really hoping that he did it and that he could roll the 6 to win the game. But he did not do it, so he got pushed out of the tower. He killed 1 guy, so that wasn't nearly enough. And then it came down to, let's see what gets rolled and see if either the ogre player loses because he gets everything shot off the board or because the scenario ends right now. And to clinch the defeat, the dwarf player rolls the 6. So at the end of turn 4, the watchtower is over. The very depleted dwarf combat block has taken the tower, but it's okay because there is nary a single ogre on the board. Well, I'm sorry, there is a single ogre on the board that is going to get shot to crap if he stays, and the Noblars that are running away like small children. And then here's the post-game handshake. The skinny guy in green is the dwarf player, and the slightly larger guy in green is the ogre player. They're all saying good game, and of course the dwarves leave the field victorious. So some closing thoughts here. I really thought that this game was in the ogre player's hands if he could have used the Iron Blaster to pick on war machines rather than gyrocopters and miners. Really, other than that, both of them played really well, played a very good game. The magic was shut down every turn. the dwarf combat blocks, did really well, fought who they were supposed to fight, and really pulled some nice tricks off to get into that tower. Really, the turn they needed to. That was very excellent. The shooting, of course, always is slightly annoying to me. That many war machines, but he had combat blocks and he fought, and most of the blocks were defeated by pure dwarf fighting power, and so I'm okay with that. That the turn of shooting into the building was horrendously scary for me. I never want to fight a dwarf gun line after that, especially not on Watchtower. I actually thought that Watchtower was going to be excellent um, at breaking this dwarf gun line's back, and it didn't at all. The dwarf gun line excelled at it. I think maybe if it hadn't been ogres in the tower, so that the D6 models actually was a benefit rather than a hindrance, those monstrous infantry taking D6 wounds, 6 different models exploding, is a lot worse when they cost 30, 40 something points. I guess the man-eaters are almost 50, as opposed to when, elves are in there and they cost 15, or orcs are in there and they cost 7. So maybe Iron Blaster priority and not letting the miners get the best of you was really the small things that led to the ogre defeat. Well, maybe that, and I kind of think putting the man-eaters in there at all may have been a mistake. I think maybe after he didn't have a turn. I was going to say after he got in, maybe he should have abandoned it, or maybe he should have, just, I don't know. Anyway, perhaps a little more aggression, trying to keep the dwarf blocks blocked off. But like I said, everybody played a really good game, and the dwarf player was very clutch with his shooting and his anvil, and I was really surprised and I was impressed. And he's been playing less time than me, and he could probably kick my butt, and I am scared to face him. I think I've got a game. He's invited us to a tournament down in South Georgia here at the beginning of the year, end of this year, at the end of 2012, and I think I'm going to go, and I'm scared because if he's indicative of the whole group down there, I'm actually going to have my hands cut out, or my work cut out for me. My hands are going to be kind of tied. I'm going to have to take something a little bit harder than I want to. Um, but I really enjoyed watching this game, and I had a lot of fun. They're great people. The dwarf player actually has our favorite running joke right now. He, in the one combat where he didn't roll very well with against the Mournfang, that first turn, he said, "Oh, I get rerolls because I have hatred." And we both, the ogre player and I, looked at him very awkwardly because, of course, dwarves only hate greenskins. And he kind of glared at us. He kind of squinted his eyes and said, "I have hatred in my heart," which I don't know if it was the way he said it or what, but it's killing us. So anyway, point being, great game, fun game, close game, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Peace.